Hey guys, Henry welcomes you in another episode of Archaeology Unveiled, where we'll unveil some of the hidden mysteries of elongated skulls and what do they reveal to us. So stay tuned. A mythological pharaoh who rules in the center of ancient Egypt and has a lengthy skull is shrouded in mystery and kept secret from historical records. Following his demise, succeeding pharaohs made it their mission to rid Egypt of any traces of him and restore polytheism. This gave rise to even more concerns that he might be fundamentally different from everyone else. While tales of his extraterrestrial ancestry have been passed down through the ages, a recent groundbreaking discovery in the far-off continent of Europe has revealed a cryptic link. In this captivating tale, the charm of mystery awaits you, as every revelation begs more questions than it does answers. Do these elongated skulls represent a long-forgotten history, or are they a puzzling message from the stars? The historians have long been enthralled by the legend surrounding the ancient Egyptian king Akhenaten, whose notoriety is second only to that of the fabled Tutankhamun. The distinctive vision of Akhenaten, another name for him, sets him apart from all the other pharaohs of ancient Egypt. Pharaohs were typically portrayed by sculptors and artists as having broad shoulders and narrow waists. However, we notice a complete break from these standards in Akhenaten's visage. His body is portrayed as having narrow shoulders, a protruding stomach, unusually long and slender limbs, and a startlingly narrow cranium that has been extended backward. Akhenaten is only distinguished from the depiction of his wife Nefertiti by his higher stature and the regal pharaonic finery he wears. In some of the reliefs that have been found, Akhenaten even appears to have a woman's breast. Akhenaten's unusual look caused people to believe that he was a genetic aberration, in contrast to other ancient Egyptian kings who are shown on bas-reliefs and murals with more traditionally human shapes without feminine breasts or elongated skulls. This in turn encouraged ufologists' theories that he might be an alien being or a creature that is a cross between a net and a human origin. He ruled the 18th dynasty as its 10th king between 1353 and 1336 BC. He had 6 daughters with the lovely Nefertiti, who served as his primary spouse. A DNA match has largely verified the historian's assertion that Princess Kia had a son named Tutankhamun. Many historical occurrences took place during Akhenaten's brief but significant reign. In the 6th year of his rule, he changed his name from Amenhotep IV to Akhenaten. A year earlier, he started building a new capital, Akhetaten, not far from modern-day Amarna, and modified 4 of his 5 titles to refer to Aten. He centralized religious practices, constructed new temples in the new capital, and performed Aten worship outside of the boundaries of the temples, under the light of the sun. He declared himself to be the protector of the sun disk and adopted the name Aten in place of Amun-Ra for this position. The power of the priests of Amun-Ra in Thebes was weakened in this fashion, as well as with the change of the capital. In the end, the priests plotted a coup against him, but he was able to avert it by giving the ark to the Jews, therefore cutting off the priests' access to God. Later, throughout his rule, he considered himself the only mediator between himself and Aten, outlawing all other gods in the process. Other than the sun disk of Aten, he disallowed any representations of other gods. After some time, he removed the names of the other gods, especially Amun, from their inscriptions. All signs of the pharaoh were purposefully removed after his passing, and the old gods were reinstated. Later tyrants kept erasing any evidence of his existence. Many people did not agree with the idea that Akhenaten was fundamentally different from all past pharaohs, both physically and intellectually, as a result of these occurrences. This helps to explain why Akhenaten's reign was the sole void in the annals of ancient Egypt. His reason of death is still unknown. Perhaps he was slain or succeeded in escaping. It is thought that a mummy found by archaeologists in 1907 in the secret tomb KV55 in the Valley of the Kings is Akhenaten's. The same A2RH blood type, computed tomography, and DNA analysis lead researchers to the conclusion that this is the mummy of Tutankhamun's father. Since there are no records that identify the owner of the tomb, it is still unclear whether these are Akhenaten's remains. Strangely, researchers haven't paid much attention to this mummies. The only known study that has established a connection between the mummy and Tutankhamun is this DNA analysis. If the remains are those of Akhenaten, they could give researchers a wealth of knowledge about his uncommon body type and special cranium. The origin of the elongated skull trend in ancient Egypt and the particular techniques utilized to produce them under Akhenaten and his line of ancestors, including Tutankhamun, are still unknown. It is thought that boards connected to babies' foreheads were used to mold their skulls. The bas-reliefs and frescoes that show the contours of Akhenaten's children's skulls, however, imply that planks alone could not have created such great elongation and a particular shape. The skull elongation techniques used by pre-Columbian Americans and some African cultures are interesting, but the resulting morphologies do not resemble those of Akhenaten and his offspring. The pharaoh's unique appearance may have been caused by the rare fetal illness Marfan syndrome, according to some scientists. The typical outcome of this illness is infertility. However, Akhenaten had a large family. Furthermore, a DNA examination of the mummy thought to be Akhenaten's did not turn up any indications of Marfan syndrome. Given that among the Egyptian pharaohs, Akhenaten and his offspring have the most pronouncedly enlarged skulls, one must wonder if this was an innate trait or an intentional deformation starting in infancy. According to a widely accepted theory among ufologists, the cone-shaped head decorations used by ancient Egyptian pharaohs were made to resemble the elongated skulls of alien entities, which forces us to think in a completely new way. A different discovery, though, makes the story of Akhenaten and his family seem less unbelievable. Finally, the outcomes of the DNA examinations of the elongated skulls discovered in Paracas, Peru, have been made public. Julio Tello, a Peruvian archaeologist, found hundreds of cone-shaped skulls in the Paracas area in the late 1920s, which sparked many theories and rumors, including those of extraterrestrial origin. More oblong skulls were discovered in the same location in 2015, and now, after an agonizing 6-year wait, the DNA test findings have been made public. Initially, it was believed that the skulls belonged to prehistoric humans who had genetic mutations, but it soon became apparent that there was more to these remains. The skulls, which are supposed to be older than 3,000 years, are thought to have come from another planet. Notably, they lack the sagittal suture, have abnormally huge eye sockets, and exhibit deformation and indentation where the two hemispheres should be. Some others even contend that these entities are likely still in charge of humans and could have done so in the past. Of course, this is only one viewpoint. But let's focus on something that has a little more background information and history. Think of a blue-eyed, blonde rural community in medieval Bavaria. More than a dozen women with dark hair, dark eyes, and unusually large skulls stick out among them. They become immediately obvious as a result, especially during certain moments. According to a recent DNA analysis, these ladies, whose amazing skulls have been discovered in Central Europe, were powerful contract brides from modern-day Romania and Bulgaria who wed to forge political ties. It's one of the strangest things I've ever read, said Israel Hershkovitz, an anthropologist at Tel Aviv University in Israel who specializes in ancient human anatomy. I don't accept it. Yes, the hypothesis has its supporters and detractors. These remains are a part of a group of elongated skulls that have been discovered in early and Middle Ages cemeteries in Asia and Europe. Near 6 modern southern German cities along the Danube, Bavarian elongated skulls were discovered among regularly formed skulls in the late 1960s. There is very little knowledge regarding their identification or the causes of the elongated skulls, and they are thought to be roughly 1500 years old. Their DNA will be sequenced by anthropologist and population geneticist Joachim Berger of the Johannes Gutenberg University in Mainz, Germany. Berger and his team matched DNA from tiny bone fragments discovered in burials with DNA from contemporary populations in Asia and Europe. 10 males and 13 females with properly formed skulls had DNA that matched contemporary populations in Northern and Central Europe. A majority of them were born with blue eyes and blonde hair. The DNA of women who have extended skulls, however, reveals a different story. They have genes for darker hair and eyes, and their genetic makeup is similar to that of modern groups from southeastern Europe, especially those from Bulgaria and Romania. What caused these women's enlarged cranium, though? Berger puts out the theory of synthetic cranial deformation. In the ancient world, this custom of continually binding infants' skulls together to promote their growth in a confined form was common, notably among the nomadic Huns of Central Asia. Romanian records are the earliest ones found in Europe. Artificial cranial deformation appears to have been equally prevalent in males and women in the 2nd century. However, there is a clear gender disparity in the Bavarian burials. Berger notes that the majority of anthropologists think that ritual deformation was only performed on the children of the affluent because it required a lot of labor. Berger hypothesizes that high-ranking women from southern Europe may have flown to Bavaria and wed there in order to enhance political relations between the regions in light of the gender gap. Unknown is if the Bavarian princesses made their way back east. Hershkovitz makes the case that the historical context does not support the genetic findings, but does not contest them. First off, he questions whether the misshapen skulls were done so on purpose. It's likely that the infants' skulls unintentionally grew longer as a result of resting on rough wooden floors or wearing backpacks. He adds that when early tribes did get married for political reasons, it was typically done by just 1 or 2 people at a time. Hershkovitz claims that sending more than a dozen ladies from the same generation would be quite uncommon. Berger responds to Hershkovitz's point by noting that no single village in the study contained more than a few women with elongated skulls. If each village functioned as a separate political unit with its alliances, the political theory remains plausible. Could it be that Akhenaten was so different because he came from a radically different race and region? Could the elongated skulls be the result of extraterrestrial intervention? These are questions whose answers we will continue to seek. Let us know what you think in a comment and support us by subscribing to the channel.